As Angel stated, today's webinar, we're going to be focusing on flip charts, and we're going to go over an overview of what the flip charts are for and some best practices and some modifications that you can make to the flip charts to make them easier. So first, I'm just going to start off with an overview of what flip charts are. If you're unfamiliar, they are a add-on feature that you can put onto your point of sale, your front-end registers, to make it easier to look up items for your cashiers. Generally, they're used for produce items such as fruit and vegetables, and they'll help the cashiers easily be able to identify a produce coming up to the lane without having to remember all those 4-digit codes. So what we usually have on the point of sale screen and we help set up is a flip chart button. We can rename this button if necessary. And by default, it opens up to family codes, and it will list off the different family codes that you have programmed into the system. I'm going to show you how those are programmed in the system in a few minutes. But then what the cashier can then do is then pick the family code that they're looking for. They can go into fruits or vegetables, go in there and be able to identify the item based off of the picture, based off the description, based off the code. There is a few extras that you can look at when you're looking at this in the flip charts. A common question I get asked is how come some of the items are green and some of the items are not? It's simply if they're green, they're weighable. So that way the cashier can also easily identify if they need to have something on the scale, such as my bananas here are weighable. So that way they can put the item on the scale, then click on it, and it will bring in the weight and give the price per pound. If it's not green, it's just being sold as each. So like I had said, by default, going back in here, it is going to open to family code. This is something that we can configure for you. We can change that for you. So that way it doesn't have to go into family code. The selections that you can do are over here on the side. You have family code. You can open departments, subdepartments, report codes, and category. So first off, the cashier can click on these if they want to sort by any of these. So category, report codes, subdepartments, and find the item that way. That's one method that can be used. We can also default to open to these as well. And we can also default to open into specific ones. And I'll show you how that can be done. So that way, for example, instead of going into family codes, you could have a quick button that just opens up your fruits, a quick button that just opens up your vegetables. So that's a nice feature that's available. The other thing is that down here, you can also search. So if you go into one of these and you want to search, you just want to start searching for bananas, you can start typing in there. Sorry, you can start typing in there for B, and it'll bring up all the B items. You go into P, it'll bring up all the items starting with P. So that makes it a lot easier to find the items if you do have a lot of items. And then up here, just a little bit more before I switch over to how to program this, you can always, if you have more than the items showing, I have a lot of items. Like if you go into all items, you can go next and previous. You can also close it from here without selling anything as well. So how to add items to your flip charts. So all of those are, if you go into your item maintenance, so all the things I just went over, subdepartment, department, family code, report code, categories, is if you assign an item to any of those, it will show up in the flip chart. So I have up here, I have my item up here. I did go through and I opened up my family code, my report code, my categories. All of these are under the auxiliary dropdown. So right here, family code, report code, and category. Also up here is your department and subdepartment, which were the other options available. You can open up these as well. So this way you can add additional if you need to add any additional. You can also just have them up here for informational. That way you know which ones you're assigning them to. And then to have the item show up in the flip chart, all you need to do is go into the item. So right here, you'd assign it to the subdepartment that you want it to show up on, category, family code, and report code. So I'm saying that I want this item to show up under my family code of vegetables. You can just come in here, assign it to vegetables. You can just type the number 2 in there, deploy the change down to the lanes. The next time the cashier goes into the family code, that item will now be there. If you need to remove one, simple as removing it. This also means an item can show up in multiples. So you can have an item showing up in category, family code, and report code. That's fine, and subdepartment, that's fine. Departments, there is no assigning an item to a department. Items are just assigned to, items are assigned to subdepartments, subdepartments are assigned to departments. So that's how you would be utilizing and assigning that. The other thing that you can do is you can also get pictures. So if you're thinking back to this, I had a lot of pictures in my fruits. It's very easy to get a picture if you would like to. All you need to do is find a picture of the item. You can go in and you can find it off Google. You can take a picture with your phone. And then once you find the picture, you're just going to want to go into your Storeman folder on your server. And when you go into your Storeman folder, I'm just going to close out my flip chart. So this is a front and center. When you go in there, there is a bitmaps folder. And you're going to drop the picture in here. JPEG and bitmaps are the two supported formats that will show. If you do happen to have both, if you have a bitmap and a JPEG of the same item, it will default to be the bitmap file, just FYI. It's like right here, I have both a 40011 bitmap and a 4011 JPEG. So the bitmap will take precedence, and that's the one that's going to show on the point of sale. Once you find a picture, you're going to want it, the biggest dimensions that you're going to want to have is 300 by 300. You don't want to get much larger. Think about the fact that this is something that the cashiers are going to be using on the screen. Generally speaking, it's a low resolution on those screens, so you don't really want to get super detailed. And you just want to make it easy. You want to have a nice, easy, simple picture for them to find. So once you find that picture, once you get it right down to there's the right sizing format, you're just going to drop it into this folder and you're going to name it to the UPC. It's the full 13-digit UPC number. So for example, going right back to our 4011, this is 13 digits. You just have to pad it out with zeros. My general way of making sure that I do that, I count the zeros as I'm putting them in there. So I just make sure I do 13. And then I go back and I put the PLU in, just subtract the 4, put the 4-digit PLU in. That's one way. The other thing that makes it nice and easy is that this is really one of the main things you're going to have in this folder. So if you're looking at this and you're scrolling down, if this was anything more than 13 digits, it's going to jump out at you that it's one in or one out. So you can just kind of make sure it matches up the items around it to make sure it's the right size. Kind of a little easy trick to doing that. Once you put them on the server, you want to push them down to the lane. What they've done in the new versions of SMS, because before when we were pushing down changes like this, it would push down all pictures, all the templates, everything like that. In the newer versions of SMS, they've added a easy schedule task that will only do the bitmaps, the bitmap folder. So if you go into messages, go into scheduler and your SMS Pro, they have added in a deployment bitmaps right here. It's scheduled task 54, and you can manually execute this. Or we could schedule this to execute automatically every night. So that way, if you're adding pictures every night or going through and doing that, we can go ahead and just schedule that. So every night it'll send down. And so any new pictures will be sent down to the lanes automatically. So just a little easy feature. They used to have that tied together with the deployed templates, and it would send down a lot of things. It would take a long time. So they have separated that out because they've realized that flip charts are utilized quite often. And that way it makes it nice and easy and something that you can easily manually deploy if you need to as well, or like we could just schedule it. One thing that we also like to, I wanted to bring up is we do, like I said, I brought it up at the beginning that by default, we open into the family codes. We get the question a lot as what kind of modifications can you make in the flip charts? So you don't have to automatically go into the family codes. You could set up some buttons to instead of going into the family codes that you can go directly into a family code. Maybe you just want to have a fruit flip chart and a vegetable flip chart. The item maintenance would still stay the same, but you would just we would just go in there and we can work with you. If you're good at button editing, I can show you how you can edit the buttons and the various ways that you can do that. Or anybody could, or our help desk could help you do this as well. But like, for example, I set up this button right here. This is only going to open up my fruits. I'm not going to have to go through the steps. I don't have to hit it's not going to go into family codes, and I have to hit fruit. We can program the button to go directly into the flip chart for the fruit. So that way you could just have two separate buttons. You could have as many buttons as you would like that we could add on there that your cashiers would find useful. I know I keep using fruits and vegetables, but those are the most common ones that we see people using for these with the PLU digits. Another example would be maybe you want to have one bakery. You have a lot of the bakery items. So that subdepartment, you would like to have a direct button so that way you can just go into all your different bakery items. So I added that here as well. So this is going to open up my bakery subdepartment. So you can see, obviously my fruits, I had a lot of pictures. I haven't done the pictures in here. But that will directly open up all the items. The searches are available in here, and then you can always search through up at the top. You can go to next, depending on how many items you have. One other configurable that we also have is, do you want to have the prices showing? So right here on the bakery one, and you can have this differ by flip chart to flip chart if you have the direct button. So on my bakery, I wanted to have the prices showing, and on the fruit one, I did not. So this way I can easily come in here and program that to show. The last one that's a commonly asked one is that the ability to search. So I just kind of showed you that you can search you can search by the buttons on the side. So I can look for one starting with O, the one starting for N. There is the ability to actually have a full-on search for the flip chart as well. So I put this button right here, and this way they can actually type in what they're looking for. So they can use the buttons over here on the side, and I'm just going to go ahead and look for anything with banana on it and search, and then it will bring up all the items that have that in here. Now, one little caveat to that is it is going to look for it anywhere in here. So you can see I have a lot of different items with the bananas in there, so it's not quite as easy to find. So you have like 1 pound free, but if you're looking for the 4011, but it will, if you're not using it for something like that, it will bring up everything, including that term in there. If you are familiar with button editing, I'm just going to touch on that. So if you've ever used the button editing in SMS, it's up under execute, it's under HTML templates. And I'm just going to go into file open and the POS button. So I'm going to look at my main page because that's where I have those. And then this is how you can program them. So like I said, this is absolutely something we can help you with, but just so you can see the logic behind and the different changes that we can make in here. So when I'm looking at a flip chart, we can point it to what we want it to do. So this is the G type is subdepartment. And then what subdepartment we want to open, which is the GIDX. And then do we want to show the price, yes or no? There is some other things that we can configure in here as well on the flip charts. We can set how many items you want to show, depending on how many with a picture. With a picture, by default, it'll show 20 items. Without a picture, it'll show 25 items. So we can change that. Obviously, you have to take into account the size of the screen and the resolution, but it is something we can add right on here if we wanted to. And how many that you could show, it's NB item equals and how many items you want to show. We can also configure how many, if you're opening up the flip chart that opens up to the default of the family code, how many in that you want to show, how many per page do you want to show? So that's not going to limit, just to go back to our point of sale, it's not going to limit that it's not going to show all the items. It's just going to limit how many per items per page that we can go to the next. And the same idea is if you're opening up and getting the list right here. So if you have more family codes, like I have a lot of subdepartments, how many of these you want to show? Because this is a little heavy for a cashier to look at. You want to make this simple. You want to make it easy to use. So by default, it shows 50 on each page for the list, and we can definitely edit that and change that on the buttons as well. And that would be something we could add right here. It would be NB group equals. And then the other idea is if you wanted to auto close it after you sell it, we could also configure that. So there's a lot of different options that we can go in here and we can do, like show price. We can easily edit how many items. You can also change the lookup order. By default, it's alphabetical. We can change it so it only looks for items with like the letter B, the letter A, all of that. The last thing with flip charts that I'm going to go over, this is pretty advanced, but just so you can see the capabilities. Again, you can always call in. We can help you set these up in a way that makes sense to you. There is a flip chart wizard. So you actually access this from the same place that we're at. If you come up under wizards right here, it's this one that says flip chart wizard. It has a little graph as a button. You can also access it right here from the button. Either one works. It opens up the same way. And this just gives you the ability to do a little bit more in-depth configuration on the flip chart if that's something that you're interested in. It's automatically going to sort it by subdepartment if you're looking at this, but you can also control what you want to do after you click on the button. So usually you're going to add that item 710 is selling it. So a sale PLU code. So when you click on it, it's going to add it to the sale. You can also have the descriptor. Oh, that's not a good subdepartment to be showing it on. But sorry about that. I should get a subdepartment that has some items in it. We'll do produce. So you can show the descriptor if you want to always show the descriptor. If you want to show the code in the descriptor, you can do that. You can click this little arrow button right here to get a little bit more information. So if you really want to get detailed on how it looks and how it's presenting on the flip chart, you can set up the width, the height, positioning of the picture inside the button, border if you want to add any sort of boarding, or if you want to change the font, anything like that, you can come in here and really get detailed on this. Now, the one thing is that you do have to do this if on all, and you have to go into each item to set this up. But if it's something that you think would be useful for some of your items, some of your specific flip charts, this is absolutely something that is a configurable that you can go ahead and do. And again, like I said, this is a little advanced. I now know that this is absolutely something the help desk can assist you with if it's something you're interested in doing. Same thing with the button configuration. If you're wanting to come in here saying, hey, like I love our flip charts, but I'd really like to have a flip chart button that goes to fruit and one that goes to vegetables. They can help you set that up and you know that it can be done. You can tell them, I know that we can open it up directly and I'd like to have 2 buttons that do that instead of one general flip chart. So just so you can see the capabilities. But with that, that's really what I did want to go over. Angel, did we have any questions come in?
Yes, we had a few questions. So the first question that we have is, will the flip charts work on self-checkouts?
So no, the self-checkouts run a program that is not SMS. So they actually run what we call check software on top of SMS. But they have, instead of flip charts, we call them quick lookups. So you can configure that on the boss machine. In the check software, you can configure all the buttons there. You can copy all the pictures over and reuse them on that, but that it would have to be put into that database for the self-checkouts. We have done a webinar on quick lookups. It was last year, so that should be up on the YouTube on how to set those up.
Thanks, Jen. Our next question is there a limit of how many pictures or UPCs you can have on the flip chart?
No, the only limit would be how many per page. So, but like I said, by default, it's 20 per page. If you wanted to increase it, we could increase it per page, but there's no limit. You could have all of your items with a picture, and then they would just, I wouldn't go much higher than 25 per page. Personally, like I said, just because it gets a lot on one screen for the cashier to find the item instead of making it simple, but you can definitely have them, sorry, let me just go through that. You can definitely have them and then they can flip through them. So there's no limit on how many you can have with the pictures. And we can definitely increase the limit on the screen. It would just be what works best for you and your cashiers. Sorry.
The next question, sorry, is do I have to save the pictures on the actual server, or can I use a workstation as long as I can get to the storeman file through the workstation?
Yes, you can go on a workstation and browse into the storeman folder on the server and drop them in the bitmap folder. That would absolutely work.
Okay, so I think that is our last question. Thank you, Jen.